October 2015. The late autumn wind in Washington, D.C. was like a ghost whispering through skeletal branches, carrying the brittle scent of dead leaves and damp earth. A cold that creeps inside bones, that chills even the most guarded of men. John Brennan sat in his study, far from the bustling Capitol, far from the secret corridors of the CIA's headquarters. His face, illuminated by the dull glow of a desk lamp, was lined with the wear of decades spent navigating the shadows of intelligence and subterfuge. Yet here, in this quiet suburban enclave, he was just a man, one phone call away from a rupture. Then the phone rang. A crackling voice, youthful, brash, and insolent, spilled through the receiver like a shard of ice. "Hello, John Brennan?" The question was a statement, a challenge. Brennan's fingers hesitated over the receiver. "Who is this?" he demanded. "You're a loser," came the reply, sharp and unapologetic. A laugh, a sneer hidden in the wires. But this was no idle prank. It was a breach, a quiet scream in the digital wilderness. Within minutes, the fortress Brennan had built around his private life was breached. His AOL email account, a repository of personal and professional secrets, had been cracked open by an unseen hand. Documents leaked, his 47-page SF-86 security clearance application, a dossier revealing everything from psychological evaluations to past indiscretions, had been stolen and leaked online. The bastion of American intelligence was exposed, laid bare by someone young enough to still live at home, someone the world hadn't even taken seriously. Far away, in a cramped bedroom in the West Midlands of England, a boy with a joint dangling from his lips stared at the screen in disbelief. Cain Gamble, known to the world as Kraka, had just rattled the foundations of a global empire. Smoke curled in the stale air. A laugh escaped his lips. The world, it seemed, was at his fingertips. Cain was not a mastermind. He was not a prodigy groomed for espionage or warfare. He was a teenager fueled by fury, anger at wars waged in distant lands, at lives crushed beneath the weight of geopolitics he barely understood but instinctively rejected. His rage found a voice in the electric pulses of the internet. But Cain's fire was kindled by a darker spark, the story of another boy, years earlier, thousands of miles away. In 2008, somewhere in the suburbs of Virginia, a boy known only as Default sat hunched in front of his computer. Soccer balls and game controllers littered the floor. A dog rested quietly nearby. On the screen, digital worlds beckoned, but they no longer satisfied. When he discovered cheating software for his games, something inside him ignited. The thrill of control, the rush of bending rules. That thrill spiraled into obsession. Code was no longer just code. It was power. It was art. It was rebellion. Default found his way into the swirling, chaotic world of Anonymous, a faceless collective of hackers whose mythic exploits danced between heroism and anarchy. The Guy Fawkes masks were a symbol, the digital banner of freedom through chaos. But behind the masks, Default saw rot, paranoia, infighting, arrests, betrayals. The group was too big, too loud, too fractured. He left, searching for purpose in the shadows. AnonSec, a fierce splinter group, welcomed him. They were ruthless. They were focused. They acted where Anonymous postured. With them, Default's skills sharpened. One night, Default stumbled upon a server belonging to the medical school of Windsor University in Canada. His fingers danced over the keyboard as he accessed student debt records. Almost $10 million were owed by countless students buried under the crushing weight of financial chains. At the bottom of the list, a simple red button glowed ominously. Delete all. Without hesitation, he pressed it. Debt vanished. To wipe away that burden felt like justice, Default would later confess. A small rebellion against a system built to keep people down. Yet the line between justice and chaos was thin, blurred, fragile. Later, when reports surfaced of legal bestiality in Denmark, a country that had inadvertently become a haven for the grotesque and the perverse. Default and his comrades in a non-sec mobilized. Operation Beast was born. They took down government websites, replacing official pages with scathing indictments of animal cruelty. They spread evidence and outrage like wildfire. Social media erupted. The Danish parliament was forced to act. The law changed. A digital victory, small but profound. In 2015, Kane's path crossed with Deferalt's. Two rebels from different worlds united by rage and purpose. Kane had just executed a stunning hack into the email account of James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence under President Obama. He rerouted Clapper's personal phone lines to the Free Palestine movement and exposed secrets on Twitter. Deferalt saw potential. Together they formed Crackers with Attitude, CWA. Their aim was simple yet audacious: to humiliate the American surveillance state, to tear down the illusion of invulnerability. They became digital phantoms, slipping through firewalls and security protocols with a mix of cunning and youthful audacity. Kane's greatest exploit was his social engineering of Verizon's internal support. Posing as a technician, he gleaned account numbers, PINs, and ultimately access to Brennan's private email. Passwords fell, secrets spilled. Brennan was forced into hiding. The agency reeled. WikiLeaks published the leaked data, including Brennan's SF-86 form, internal government memos on Middle East policy, and Senate correspondence on legal interrogation techniques tantamount to torture. The impact was seismic. CWA's rampage didn't end with Brennan. FBI Deputy Director Mark Giuliano's account was next. Then, the Department of Justice's Joint Automated Booking System, the tool tracking every prisoner in the U.S. Personal data of 9,000 DOJ employees and 20,000 FBI agents flooded the internet. The government scrambled to respond. More than $1.5 million was spent on damage control, relocating operatives, revoking security clearances, but the damage was done. The myth of American cyber supremacy lay in ruins. Teenagers had bested the giants from their bedrooms. The thrill of defiance was short-lived. Kane Gamble, still a minor, was arrested in the UK, sentenced to 2 years in juvenile detention, the first British minor jailed for hacking at such a level. Difficult's downfall was harsher. A drunken boast to a friend led to betrayal. FBI agents stormed his room, rifles raised as his computer decrypted his files. His Bitcoin wallet, holding over 1,000 coins worth $40 million today, was seized. 5 years in federal prison, solitary confinement, $145,000 in restitution. From digital Robin Hoods to felons. The world watched. Years earlier, Edward Snowden had torn open the curtain on mass surveillance. Fleeing to Hong Kong, then Russia, he revealed a government watching its own citizens. The agencies Snowden exposed were the same, shattered by CWA's exploits. Yet in 2023, the U.S. quietly renewed controversial surveillance laws. The FBI misused databases nearly 280,000 times, spying on protesters, donors, political dissidents. The question remains, what has changed? Kane now keeps his head down, seeking redemption in cybersecurity. Difficult lives with quiet rage. Their story is a mirror, reflecting power's fragility, the restless spirit of youth, and the digital age's uncertain battle for truth. This is their legacy. Two kids who looked at the world, saw its fractures, and chose to hack the system, not for money, not for fame, but for chaos, justice, and the unyielding demand for truth. The battlefield was not lined with tanks or guarded by armed men. It was invisible, vast, woven into the infrastructure of wires and servers humming silently beneath the cities of the free world. In this digital arena, the weapon was deception. The strategy, social engineering. To the untrained eye, it might seem mundane, a phone call, an email, a casual question. But for Kane Gamble, It was an art form, a chess match played with human psychology as much as code. His target? Verizon's call center. Kane's voice, steady and confident, masked the tremor of adrenaline. He impersonated a technician, claiming urgent need to verify account details for maintenance. The operator on the other end, a low-level employee, complied, unaware she was handing over keys to the kingdom. Through these conversations, Kane peeled back layers of security. Numbers, password resets, security questions. With each piece, he inched closer. It was a dance, a performance where one misstep meant capture, and yet he played it flawlessly. Access to John Brennan's private email was the crescendo. It was no accident. It was precision. Inside Brennan's inbox lay not just emails, but a trove of secrets that could topple careers and damage national security. There were messages from Middle East operatives discussing covert drone strikes. There were Senate reports delicately worded to justify torture techniques cloaked in legal jargon. There was a 47-page SF-86 form, a classified roadmap of Brennan's life, his vulnerabilities, his fears, his past. For Kane, it was surreal. Here was the man who oversaw the shadows of American intelligence, stripped bare by a teenager. Kane's mind raced. The power was intoxicating, but with it came a profound responsibility and danger. Leaking this information was not just rebellion, it was a statement. They published the files on WikiLeaks. The world's intelligence community was shaken. The headlines screamed, "Teen hacker exposes CIA director's secrets. Government security compromised by British youth. Cracker with attitude. How a 15-year-old embarrassed the American spy state." Journalists clamored for interviews. Analysts dissected every leaked memo. Politicians demanded hearings. But Kane remained elusive, a ghost slipping through the digital fog. In pubs and cafes across England, whispers began. Who was Cracker? What drove him? How had a teenager penetrated the impenetrable? For Kane, the spotlight was terrifying, yet exhilarating. It was a dance on a razor's edge, fame and infamy intertwined. Cracker and Dreffold were no longer just pranksters. They were insurgents. The FBI deputy director's email was next. Mark Giuliano's personal communications laid bare. Then, the Department of Justice's joint automated booking system fell. The system that tracked prisoners across the United States was hacked, exposing personal data of thousands of federal employees and agents. Names, emails, phone numbers spilled onto the web. The repercussions were swift. Security teams scrambled. Emergency protocols activated. Damage control became the order of the day. Over $1.5 million was spent in the aftermath. Agents were relocated, clearances revoked. But the damage was irreversible. The government had been shown to be vulnerable, exposed by kids. With power comes attention. Kane Gamble became the focus of an international manhunt. British authorities, under pressure from the U.S., closed in. Surveillance cameras tracked his movements. Online footprints were traced, and yet Kane was clever. He slipped between the cracks, using VPNs, burner phones, and encrypted messaging. But in the end, the walls closed in. His arrest was a quiet affair, a knock on the door in the middle of the night. He was taken, not as a hero, but as a criminal. The courtroom was stark. Kane sat, head bowed, the weight of expectation and disappointment pressing down. He was charged with multiple counts of hacking and cyber-terrorism. For the first time, the UK government wielded a law that would see a minor sentenced to juvenile detention for hacking. The judge's words were harsh but measured. The sentence? 2 years in a juvenile facility. Kane's family was left shattered. The world debated. Was he a villain or a vigilante? Dreffold's story was darker. Years of isolation, obsessive hacking, and risky bravado led to his downfall. A drunken brag to an old friend became his undoing. The FBI raided his home, flash drives seized, Bitcoin wallets emptied. Sentenced to 5 years, solitary confinement, and hefty fines, his future was bleak. His empire, built on code and rebellion, crumbled. Years later, the echoes remain. Edward Snowden's revelations laid the groundwork. Kraken and Default tore the veil further, but governments remain watchful and unyielding. The cycle of surveillance and resistance continues. Kane Gamble now works quietly in cybersecurity, a redemption arc unfinished. Default lives in shadows, a ghost of digital past. Their story is a warning and a testament. The fragile line between power and vulnerability, the restless spirit of youth, and the digital world's unending war for truth. Jail wasn't just confinement, it was a crucible, burning away youthful bravado, forcing reflection. For Kane Gamble, the silence of juvenile detention was deafening. The walls pressed close, but so did his thoughts. He replayed every keystroke, every phone call that led to his capture. He wondered, was it worth it? Did his actions make a dent against the titans of surveillance or simply feed their fear, their tightening grip? Letters from supporters trickled in. Some called him a hero, others a criminal. But Kane's truth was complex, a messy blend of anger, idealism, and regret. Outside prison walls, the world had moved on, but not without scars. Federal agencies revamped protocols, pouring millions into cybersecurity. No longer were teenage hackers dismissed as harmless pranksters. New laws, surveillance programs, and international cooperation intensified. Privacy became a currency paid with increased scrutiny and loss of freedoms. The government's response was a paradox. More security meant more intrusion. Released early, Default walked into a changed world. The internet he once ruled had evolved, more encrypted, more surveilled. He carried the weight of his sentence, 5 years in solitude etched into his mind. He found work far from hacking, a reminder of his fractured dreams. Yet the fire inside him smoldered. His story was a cautionary tale, how youthful rebellion could burn too